So welcome everyone. We're this is our second session that we've done with Irma, and he's from um, Digital Moment. He is a trainer there. He is one of the English trainers. Remember, Digital Moment offer a lot of free workshops as well, and he'll probably touch on a few of those at the end. But this is a partnership that Learn and Digital Moment have, where we collaborate and share each other's knowledge. And today, Irma is going to share some of his explorations into AI and education. Um, Again, for those of you just coming in, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat or write them down. We'll have some time at the end of Hermé's talk with us to answer some of those questions. So without further ado, Hermé, I'll pass it on to you. And thanks again for coming and sharing with our community.
No, my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's an opportunity to explore things, and we had a great conversation last time. So, as Chris said, please feel free to put the questions in the chat, but also unmute and say, Herman, I don't understand. I don't agree. What's happening? Let's talk. That is the idea. That's the way that we're going to learn the most. And the more you ask, the less you have to hear me talk, which is great. So, what we're doing today, as Chris was saying, is an exploration of the different stages that we see at Digital Moment of AI being introduced in the classroom. And some of them we covered before. I'm going to open the door to a few more, and I'm going to share some of the things that we're trying right now. Are they working? We're not sure yet. We're trying them, we're running pilots, we're seeing results, and I want to share that with you. So let me share the screen to get started, and then we get to see what is all this idea and what do we have today. Perfect. Let me move this. So I call it a practical exploration, and I have an evaluation link. As always, we're a nonprofit, so I'm going to ask you from now. That's all I expect today from you is your attention, but a survey. Of course, I'm going to ask for a survey. Very important for us, for our funders to know that we're doing these things and for us to improve. I'll share the slides with you, including the survey at the end of the session. And when we're in the Q&A, I'll post the survey. So that's the first part. I have only 2 commercials today. That's the first one. I'll get rid of the second one shortly. So what we're doing in this practical exploration is we're going to take a look at how do we work with AI in education in general. Let's talk about K to 12 and how can we do things with this. What are the levels? The levels that we see are 3 big buckets. One of them is understanding the technology for educators and for students, what it is, what is not, many different parts. What are the fundamentals? Then, how can we increase our quality of practice, our quality of life as educators? How can we use this to make our life a little bit easier? And then the top level is now is a learning support tool. How can we use it with our students so that we can explain things better? They can learn some other things that maybe we don't know. How can we complement the learning? Let's explore those 3 steps. In the first one, we're going to go in the fundamentals. And in the fundamentals, this one, I'm going to close over because we saw this before and we can see it again some other day if you want. I can share a lot of resources and guidance. And there are many resources, but I still recommend Experience AI. This is going to teach you when to use it, what not to use it, what are the dangers, what are the biases, how to create a model, many different things. And I'll be running a session in February because now there's a new module on AI and safety. So that just came out yesterday. Very excited to talk about that. And that is my second commercial. We end the commercials now, and that is Experience AI. Very happy to share what we're doing with this, maybe to share more of the experience with you and your colleagues. So that is the fundamentals. We have that in that bucket. The second part is quality of practice. So, as educators, how can we use AI to make our life a little bit easier, a little bit better, and potentially even increase the quality of the lessons for our students? The information that I'm going to share with you from quality of practice comes from two main sources. One is Google has a great course. I'm going to be flipping my screen, so but I'm going to come back. And what we have is this. So generative AI for educators is there in the link. This is a 2-hour course that you can take asynchronously, and it's going to be very important to provide all that information that I'm giving you, but at a different pace. If you're like Herman, I don't have 2 hours to do this, then we created this document that has all the information that is there, even if you want it, for example, in a table, or if you want it just in different steps with images and some more detailed information. You're going to have access to all this. Now, that's where the information comes from, and also from discussions we have with many different teachers talking about education, from other seminars and other things we've done. Let's take a look at some of the steps. So when we're here at this level in quality of practice, what can we do? I'm going to start from here. It can help us save time. In what ways? It's great to generate the first pass on a lesson plan or an assessment. We just give it some information, it gives us the first pass, then we're ahead. We don't need to do all that work. We just start becoming editors. Instead of becoming creators of things, we become editing something that AI provided to us. And we're going to see what are the rules and the guidelines we follow to do so. Then it can help us with communication with students, parents, and other educators. This for me has been a game changer because I can find a language that fits best who I'm talking to. It gives me ideas and I bounce, and sometimes I feel like, oh, yes, this is great, you got me, or sometimes like you completely lost the point of what I'm trying to say. Once again, we're editing and finding ways to interact. Helps summarize, it helps provide links or keys to relevant materials, and it helps us change different reading levels within our students. We can change interest and reading levels. So it saves time, it helps us differentiate, it helps us enhance lessons, and in different boards, in different schools, when allowed, there are some tools that can help you with grading and feedback. Those I put with an asterisk because it's a little bit more controversial, and it has some things that you need to create a little bit more as the expert in the classroom. So that will be one of the steps on quality of practice. If we're doing that, the thing that is going to help you the most, and it's going to help you your quality of practice, but later on also it's going to help you support your students, is how can we make a good prompt? And there are many different ways, many ideas of how to structure a prompt. And sorry, start with the idea of let's have a persona. If I'm asking an LLM about a topic, I want you, the LLM, to take the persona of as a teacher, grade 3 that teaches math. Let's say that's the persona. Or you want to send an information that is a marketing brochure and this is for a cosmetics company. So give that persona so that the LLM has more context. And we start piling up those things. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want. After we have the persona, then we say, this is my goal. This is my objective with this message that I'm asking you to write, or with this lesson plan, or with this idea. Then, who am I writing this for? Are these 7-year-olds? Are these 15-year-olds? Are these grown-ups? Are these funders? Are these customers? Who is this for? This makes a huge difference in the answers that you will get. I'll give you some clear examples shortly. And the last one is the theme and structure. Do I want the answer to be as bullet points? Do I want it as a table? Do I want a graph? How do I want this to be presented as a story? We have control over that when we're prompting and asking information to this system. And context is going to be very important. The idea of there's technical ideas of zero shot, one shot, two shot, and that means how many examples we provide. That's going to make a big difference. We can take a look at some of those ideas. Let me organize this. It keeps jumping where I don't want it to. We're going to get there in a second. I'll show that in a second. So we know now that it can increase some attributes in our practice. It saves time. It helps to differentiate all these things. Now we need to realize that we need to become a little bit better at prompting. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a little bit better, a little bit more mindful. And the other thing is that when we're doing this, we need to be careful and conscious. So what are the considerations that I invite you to? We have two systems that takes us basically to the same place, but you will always be the expert in the classroom. You're the one that knows best your students. You're the one that knows best the curriculum. You're the one that understands the things that you're saying. Artificial intelligence produces things that are very amazing, but there's still not the understanding that any of us have of the topic. So you will fact check that this is a key one. We covered this in Experience AI, but to fact check, you're going to edit. And that's one of the things that you're going to be doing a lot is getting some content and modifying it. You're going to augment, personalize, you should disclose and you should encourage your students to disclose when they're using AI. So there's transparency, there's no need to hide. We're using AI. Can we use it in the assignment? Yes or no? And we're going to see how and why. And you're going to be mindful of privacy and security. You have the guidelines in Quebec that helps a lot, and most likely the board or school you're working for already has one LLM or some AI tools that are approved by that school or board, and that takes great part of being mindful of privacy and security, not sharing that information, but also educating your students not to add personal information, names, addresses, all these things that we keep in mind. And we have the module also can be used as these evaluate, verify, engage, revise, and you, which is a different way of seeing this. These modules, they come from here, and you have that link where you have a poster from AI in Education. They provide great resources that you can explore on this area. Before we go and jump into learning support tool, do we have any questions? I said to Chris that I was going to go quite fast between these first two levels because I think it's something that you know much more about, and then we can jump into the experimental part. But let me see if we have anything in the chat. Just let me know. I don't see, I see something in the chat. It's just Experience AI from Chris. Great. So we have that. Did I raise my hand? Yeah, I raised my hand and AI said I raised my hand. So I'll give you a second to see if we have any questions. Okay, so we're good there. We're going to jump into the third part. Now we want is to bring AI in the classroom, not only for us, but for our students to interact with it. What are some ways that we're experimenting? What are we trying? So the first part is that we're using the concept of the stoplight model, where we have three different levels. Is AI is not permitted, and even collaboration with other students is not permitted in many cases. You may use it if the educator says yes, and that's going to be from time to time. And in some other cases, it's totally encouraged. And for this, I went and created an example using AI. How can I use this in my practice? So we can say that I have different levels. Let's say we go with middle school, 6th to 8th grade, and I said for the subject science, then conducting hands-on experiments may be better not to be done with AI, just do the experiment yourself. For yellow light, then why don't you take the experiment and the data you receive and try to have the AI help you analyze it? Then now you're expanding the concept. And then the green light is research scientific concepts and recent discoveries. You go and conduct the experiment. You have collaboration with the AI to analyze. You're critical about the information that it provides. But then you said, okay, I want to know more about this, and my results are these. What is there that you can point me to? And let's have a discussion about it. So you're expanding the topic, you're expanding the concept, and you're using that stoplight model in those three different stages. The beauty is that you can always do this for the grade level that you're teaching and the subject that you're teaching. I'm going to try to cover those different areas in all these examples. So this will be like a base level. What can I use? What can't I use? And then you direct the session. The other one is let's brainstorm. Let's brainstorm together and let's try to do things. So I said, let me give you a grade, a subject, how many activities do I want, the level of detail that I want to know for each one of these activities, and what tools and techniques can I use. A rough idea of that, this is the stoplight, a stoplight, this will be a rough idea. All this, you have access to this. They're not great. They're experiments for us to see. So grades 9 to 12, let's say in math, and then I have 10 different activities that I can start exploring for me to dig a little bit deeper with my students. This is a way for you to get a lot of ideas just at once, and you start curating. You're the expert. You're going to say, AI, this thing is garbage. But then how can we make it a little bit better? Or what does it trigger in your mind that you said, oh, I didn't think about this aspect. How can I dive deeper on that path? Yes, Iris.
Hi. So I understand that these resources will be available. I go into schools, both elementary and secondary level, at times for art projects. Would I have to check their policies per school, or is this a rough guideline on like where the school or the age group is at in regards to the light?
Yes. So I can answer that. The short answer is you should check with the school to see what's the internal guideline. We still have many schools where AI is completely a forbidden word. So it depends if the school allows it. And then that will be the first step. And the second is these are simple explorations, is what comes of a query, and then we bring it here to explore a little bit deeper. At some point, Iris, every single school, every single student, every single teacher is going to be using the technology in one way or another. But for now, there's still boundaries in places. And I know I have some schools here in Toronto that I said to them, yeah, we're going to talk. And I promise I won't mention the word AI in any shape or form because it just creates a hassle for them at the moment. I know that's going to change.
And maybe I'll just add to Iris, it's a good question. I think for our province anyway, teachers are free to use it for their own, needs. So if you're looking to create a lesson plan or whatever it might be, or explore those ideas, there's no issue. It's just when there's kids' data that gets involved where you have to check, like letting kids use it is not, we're just not there yet. But for a teacher tool, I mean, I don't see any school saying we don't want you using it, particularly if you're visiting. But like Elme said, I would always check just to make sure. But generally, that's kind of the scheme that they've set up so far here in this province.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. That's 100% correct. Yeah, I fully agree. So let's go after going of the process of brainstorming. What else can we do? Then this is a little bit diving deeper in that exploration that I saw, I said, okay, I like this idea of comparing political systems, but what can I do with the class? I have some ideas. Let me ask AI. Let's see what ideas do I get and how do I refine it. So if I go here, then this is, I said, you know, in this case, I use any of the AI system. I said, why don't you give me a rough lesson plan of what can I do for this age level about this time? And it says, yep, we have this. These are the objectives, some of the materials, the lesson structure that is presenting with times, uh, what can you do for assessment, what can be the extension, some curricular connections. I said, why don't you give me curricular connections for this activity for different provinces? I always put here, warning, not fact checked. These are things that it gave, and it gave me a lot of reference, so we could fact check many of these things. That helps. And up to there is, okay, that seems okay, but as teacher, most likely you already have your lesson plan or your curricular connections. Maybe you want more. You said, why don't you give me some activities that we can do together with AI? And it's giving me a few things. So generate hypothetical scenarios. That can be, in this case of political studies and political systems, something so much easier to generate than for you to create. Is to, the system can create it, you can edit it. I went with this one. I said, this create comparison charts seem interesting. I said, why don't you give me a comparison chart that we can use in the classroom, or the students can start thinking and discussing? And it provided us with this comparison chart where we have the political systems, some key features, advantages and disadvantages. You know how to edit this to make it much better and fit your students and your style, but you can do this in 10-15 minutes, and then you start editing. Imagine putting all this work beforehand. Just the fear of the empty page, it's something that this is going to help most of the time. So this is one of the explorations. The second exploration is that we like to work with Scratch and Microbit and MakeCode Arcade and JavaScript. So I wanted to see multidisciplinary lessons. And this one went a little bit different. Let me go back. Is that in this case, I didn't say, give me ideas. I said, I know I have some ideas for the microbit, but I need a little bit more guidance. In most cases is because I know a little about the microbit. I don't know everything. And for sure, I don't know everything about the subject. But what I did here is the following. I said, why don't you give me some information on how to create lesson plans in atoms for atoms? So how can I represent with the microbit electron orbits and energy levels? How can I represent something about electron spin? If I'm talking about the cell, how can I present cell properties and use the microbit to create that? One, at the end, I have two that I'm dying to try, and I haven't tried them because I have a session with teachers that I want to do with them. Is one, I want to simulate pollination with microbits. And this gave me something, and I have microbits that can be flowers, microbits that can be bees, and then I can go and move the microbit from flower to flower, the bee, and see the counter grow or something move or represent something else somewhere else. Then I'm bringing the concept of, I'm teaching the concept of pollination, but I can let the students modify and edit the code within MakeCode or within MakeCode microbit and create that relationship between all these concepts. So I'm just reinforcing what I'm doing. And the other one that I really want to try is this one, where I want to talk about photosynthesis, but not only having a microbit that maybe is taking light and is giving me a bar graph or changing in the image depending on how much light it takes over time. But I can take that microbit that takes light and I can start filling up a bucket. I'm doing photosynthesis, I reach a level, I send a message to another microbit that is transporting sugars through the trunk, and then after I reach a certain level, then maybe I go and interact with the root. And all these things is the subjects that you know, maybe you have an idea and you said, this sounds like a crazy idea. Let me see what it gives me. And then you try this and you start exploring and going a little bit deeper. That is the beauty that I see in AI, is that this allows not only you as a teacher, but your students to have different ideas to create different projects that maybe they don't have the expertise to do. They do just learn about pollination, but they don't know enough about microbits. But if you give them the code and they start working with that code and making it better and debugging, then you're mixing these concepts and then it becomes stronger and a little bit more interesting for everybody. I have one last thing, and is something that we're trying. This is all I have for that. We've done a little bit of this, but we're working on a project and I have some pilots coming up with some students, and we want to do sports and data. We want to have that concept, but sports and data has been done or is being done by some other partners and people we work with Python. But sometimes the Python might be too much at that level of understanding. I want to find something a little bit easier. And then what I want is for the kids to move, to play a sport. Can be basketball, can be soccer. I'm trying to run a session online. I have some coins here to playing table hockey with coins. That's going to be the sport that we're going to be doing. And then that's play. That's they create teams, they play, and they measure. We're collecting data from how far, how many tries did it take, who's the best at scoring. Maybe if we're talking about basketball, who's the tallest or who can run faster, whatever statistics you want to measure. Then the message part is that instead of us trying to put all this together, the teacher has an LLM, not the students in this case, and share the screen and said, okay, what do we ask the LLM with this information? What can we do? Maybe put it in a graph, put it in a chart. And the other thing that we tried already in Chalequin and La Saline with Bernat in Montreal is then he has the kids do all this, then they prompt the LLM, and at some point it ends by saying, LLM, these are the two teams. We're going to play this game. Who's going to win? And then it makes a prediction. And then you query, why do you think this team is going to win? And then you let them play the game. Then you assess again at the end, was the prediction right? Was it wrong? And why? And we found great things in this experiment because the numbers were very solid. But then the kids started saying, but my friend is not in this team and I play better with my friend. So we said, how can we make those elements, how can we make them quantifiable? How can we include them? So it's an introduction to start thinking about data, and then we can talk about the median, about the average. All these things are concepts that can be introduced in a way that is playful and simple. And it ends with masteries because at the end, all the kids that have done this, they didn't know any of those statistical concepts, and now they know it. And they play with, they lived it, they saw the impact that this has in real life, and then they can keep their exploration. You as a teacher can start going into the math part in order to teach how to do the statistical part. But also if you are in computer science, then you can say, why don't we graph it? Why don't we use Python in order to graph these things? Or much simpler, we bring it down to a spreadsheet via Google or or Excel, and then we grab this information. So those are the experiments that we're doing. the last thing I have is the takeaways is for AI in education, AI is not a replacement for critical thinking. That's one of the parts that I've seen the most. We started when AI started blooming and blowing up is to treat it as a tool that is a collaboration. And in the journey since then, it has morphed into trying to be many things. But so far in our experimentation, in what I've talked to other teachers and with what read, it's still a tool. It's not a replacement. It's one more thing that is going to enhance your practice. Nothing else. That's all I have for you today. I think we have time. I didn't put my clock. How are we? We have lots of time. I
Great.
went really fast. Okay.
Yep. Emma, I just wanted to ask, what search were you using to produce the things that you showed us today? What engine or ML, what model were you using?
I'm happy you asked that question because I'm going to show you, because of the position that we're in right now, this is what is usually in one of my screens. So what do I have? I have Perplexity. I have two versions of Hugging Chat. I have Claude. I have Gemini. I have them all open. And most of the time, what I do is that I ask the question to one. I see how that works, how the answer feels to me, how many references do I get, and then I try another one. Because one of the important parts is we've been very reluctant to recommend one tool because there are two parts that are key. One, I'm not that sure, maybe you can help me in Quebec how that is, but what I've seen here in Ontario is that we have two big groups. Is the Google Classroom, so they're using Gemini because it's included within that package, or the Copilot, so the Microsoft School system. So we see those two, then I don't want to interfere. They can use whichever they want. But for me, it's very important to try everything, but not recommend a specific tool. I think it's too soon, and the evolution of the tools is too fast to marry a tool right now. We should just try things and see what fits best your style. I find that the voicing from tool to tool is very different. And that's one of the most important things for me is how does it sound? I'm not going to tell you which one, but there's one that I really don't like the answers because I find that they're too pompous, too inflated, like too much. There's one that I really like because it fits the way that I express myself. So it might be in the way that I ask, or it might be on the training of the system. And the other part that I take a look at is trying to find the one that gives me the best citations. If I get a lot of citations and references, that's going to help fact check things a little bit faster.
And you talked a little bit about how we need to ask the questions, right? Like we're putting the prompts in, and what have you found throughout your work of where you learn about how to do good prompts? Is it through just doing it, or did you find any documentation that could support that idea of how to give good prompts, or wider questions or more precise questions? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. My recommendation is this. For me, this was a game changer, but I know everybody's really busy. So what I added here at the bottom is three different types of prompts that you can do. Let's say, for example, this is a prompt in order to come up with activities. And then we have terse examples and verbose examples. What is really interesting in my experimentation and tried many different things is that most of the time, this is overkill. Most of the time, this is good enough as long as you present the system with the key parts. What are the key parts? Who are you? Who are you answer as? Who is this for? And what format do I want it in? Those will be the three key aspects that give me the best answer. If you have examples, then that's great, but I don't think it's needed at least for the first prompt. Then what happens after the first prompt is that, yeah, I basically never stop at the first prompt. You get the prompt and then you said, oh, can you please elaborate on this or consider this, or I don't like this part, or this is great, let's move it this way. And you start flexing it, adapting it to where you want to go. These two resources that I put there, I really, really like is the one that I show for Google. You can do the 2 hours or the simplified, or if you have time, this is a Coursera course and it's meant to be for secondary education, but I find that the concepts they present, it works really, really well for elementary and for uh, teachers themselves.
And maybe just a small follow-up on that. Are there certain words that the models understand better than others? Like, clarify or clean up, or like, does AI have kind of a dictionary of terms that it ranks, that it really understands when you ask describe or create? Like, is there a list of those, or is it just a matter of trying the different prompts out?
Yeah, that'll be great. Like to have something similar to SEO that I know if I put these keywords, I'm going to get the answer. Not at the moment. The way that I've seen it is that these systems have been changing so much and so fast that is very hard to identify this is the right way to find this. Uh, I build prompts that are the long, long ones, and I get terrible results. And then I minimize it and give it just the simplest thing, and I get something more meaningful that helps me start the conversation. I think part of why the keyword is not that important is because of the randomness within the model answer itself. The model is going to find the thing that fits the best for the next word, but then starts randomizing in order to provide different ideas and things that seem a little bit more fluid. And I think that that's what limits the questions. I find myself doing a few things a lot. The first one, I say still please a lot and thank you a lot. And it's one of those things that we teach not to anthropomorphize, but I always struggle with that part a little bit. And in my mind, I think it's important to anthropomorphize a little bit, just a tiny bit, for two reasons, or three reasons. Reason number one is that when you give a positive question or something that is, it can be viewed as positive or good, the systems tend to respond better to it. So very important at that level. Second is that taking a look at research, for example, of Kate Darling, which is an MIT researcher that did research on interactions of humans and robots. And she gave a lot of people or a bunch of people a toy, a dinosaur toy, and let them have it for a while. And then she found what was the way that people was interacting with this toy. And this is a way that is kind of predicting the way that we are going to interact with AI or interact with robots. And her research concludes that it's very close to the way that we interact with pets. So that means that also positive reinforcement and being kind and being direct helps. And the third part is very selfish, is it's not selfish, is that I find that the way that we express ourselves, the way we treat others, even if it's a machine or a model, it shapes the way that we feel and who we are. So if we even privately in a chat, we're just mistreating a chat, it, it doesn't bode well on us either, and it kind of goes against our humanity. So those are the main part. I find myself still being very nice to it. I use a lot please revise. Uh, oh, and one that I didn't use that much and I've been using a little bit more. Oh, thank you. That's great. Can you change this? Helps a little bit. Listening to a conversation with someone from Anthropic, the creators of Claude, they have a psychologist that she's the person that has had more interactions with that model than anybody in the world. And then I learned a few interesting things. One of them is that positive ideas give better results, is that mathematically, or in the way that the model reacts when the model is mistreated or is given things that are not perceived as nice, you could say that the model gets stressed. There are spikes on the way that it process information. So it's a very interesting concept. And I think the idea of thinking of these models in a way like a pet, it can help the interaction and it can help the way that we understand a little bit better the answers, and it helps us be a little bit better ourselves.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. Does anybody else have any questions? Iris, go for it.
Yeah, just in an extension of this last discussion, because I work with images so much, and I used to be an illustrator for newspapers in the Netherlands, and sometimes to translate an abstract article into an image, I would Google. I mean, after these calls, I know not to use Google so much. But the prompts were quite important to words and outcome to me. And just yesterday, I worked to help my oldest, who's in university, to get through a website system. And I like these challenges. It was not accepting something until I realized, oh, this is for a French system. We need to speak in French to this website thing. And that's when it led us through. So to be descriptive, think of a word that describes it slightly different, like bringing a flavor or a taste. I think it really opens up some doors, but I'm not as used to LLM just yet.
I think that what you're saying, Iris, translates very well to interacting with an LLM is being creative, being precise, being clear. I think those are different concepts that transcend just communication in general. The clearer you're presenting the information, the easier it's going to be to get something that you are more comfortable with. Uh, I find myself many times being also very lazy, and then I said, this doesn't make sense. Let's see if it makes sense out of it. And sometimes it does. But yes, being mindful, it pays off. And that part that you mentioned about the language is really interesting, especially because all of these models right now, you can type to them in any language, and that makes it very versatile, and they just adapt. Especially French and English shouldn't have a problem with any of those. And it
Well,
should help with
in
the
the
references.
beginning, I'm an immigrant from the Netherlands, so in the beginning, I was really surprised of the different results in the visual on the visual end on the internet, and I really understood that, oh, I'm now in a different bracket where I get different results, and sometimes I I really want a more thorough outcome, and so I'll make an effort in language.
There's something really interesting in what you're saying because I don't know about this, but it's worth thinking is that when you're using a web browser to do search, is is highly coupled with the location, as you're saying. The results in one place from another are going to be very different. I don't know how that works for an LLM. I really don't know if it has any relevance in that case if the prompt is decoupled from location or not. But that's something to experiment and check.
I was just curiously, what do you tend to use when you're generating images? What tool do you like?
This is really interesting because when it came out, I fell in love with the idea of generating images and I got really bored. I don't generate images. There's something I do use and I use for the presentation you saw, and it's something that I use quite a bit. Do I have it open? I should have it. Let me see, where do I have it? And it's called Napkin AI.
Mm.
Let me share the screen and this. And that one I use for this type of presentations. So let me go. Here is called Napkin AI. And to generate any of these images, I just provide a little bit of text. Let's do an example. What do I have here? Let's can get some text from here. Let's put these learning objectives. I'm gonna copy this and gonna paste it on Napkin AI. Let me put it here. I think is mad at me. Let's try again. Copy and let me refresh. Let's say new napkin and let's paste. So I put the text that I want to work with. I click on this little lining, and then it's going to give me different options, many different options of styles. And then I can say, you know what? Yeah, this style seems kind of okay. And then it gives me different options. And when I have it here, I can change the color, the text. So I find this very useful because the text becomes very heavy and it's hard to remember, but an image, it becomes very impactful. So this is the one that I'll be using the most to generate this type of things. Uh,
Hmm.
General images, don't worry that much about it really myself. If I need to generate something, I will pick the first one. And I think that will be Gemini because it gives me some images without paying anything extra. When I was generating them for fun, I remember Midjourney was the one that gave me the best results.
Cool. Do we have any other questions out there?
The other part
Awesome.
regarding the images is that I find AI great to do very utilitarian things, to give me that graphic, to give me that little image. But at some point, when you look at an image generated by AI, how much joy does it give you eventually? So it's very utilitarian, serves a purpose, but it is not the Starry Night or anything like that.
Right. Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions out there?
Yeah, very useful. It's nice. I like it. One thing is, as you saw, I need to refresh. It seems like it's very memory heavy to your laptop, so it's gonna get bogged down after a little bit. But it's a quick way to add something interesting and to add a concept. And those slides you saw, there was barely no text, just a bunch of images.
Right.
And I'm going to put before I forget, because I always forget, the link to the slides. Let me put it in the chat. So this is the link to the slides. And in the link of the slides, while still here, if you don't mind filling in the survey, that greatly appreciated. The links to everything are there. One thing that I did a little bit different is that those links that you see, what they will do is they will make a copy of the slide deck or any of the pages. That way, you don't see a bunch of people working and then you can copy and edit any way you like. I think it's a little bit more versatile.
All right, cool. And Elma, is there any thing that you want to plug happening at Digital Moment that you'd like to share?
So things is
The link.
Experience AI. We're still doing Experience AI for everybody. So that's an important one if you want to work more on that. The other one is you can sign up for our newsletter where we post different events. And we do have some events coming up now in February. Let me see and open them and share my screen. You can find our events in general. We try to put them always in Eventbrite. These are free for you to register if you want. So in French, we have Introduction to Microbit. And in French, we have, I don't see the other one. Oh, yeah, Decision Trees with Experience AI. And we're going to have in February also Microbits and Spreadsheets. We're going to have AI Fundamentals of AI and Safety, which is the new module. And we're going to have Machine Learning with Microbits. Chris told me you were in a session today doing that. We're going to do that. It should
Cool.
be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a blast. It's
Yeah.
you guys should check that out. You're using the accelerometer within the microbit, and I shared the link and a picture of what it looked like, Iris, and just to give you some info. But it's super powerful for kids to create their own data and then analyze it, and this
Yeah.
really does that. So it's really fun to look at, and the kids like it. And there was one other thing I wanted to say too, is that I really appreciated that you were like, let them play first, let them discover, and then you can talk about it. Like and we're kind of in that stage here in Quebec where we're have this critical thinking hat on, where we're getting to ask good questions, but get them to play with the
Yeah.
problem we give first, and then. So I like that philosophy that you shared with us today.
It's a super interesting workshop. We run 2 sessions so far, and we're still developing, but it helps them think because they like the sport and then they want to win. And why didn't we win? Or it's because, yeah, Lily is so good that of course she's always going to win. But then why does she win? Is it because she's the tallest, the fastest, the strongest, is the most accurate, the most consistent? And then getting into that conversation and the kids providing those points of data to capture. We don't tell them what data to capture. This is the game. What data should we capture?
Right.
Yeah.
So cool. So cool.
Lots of fun.
Well, with that, we'll give it a wrap if there's no other questions out there. Elme, again, thanks so much. It's great been doing these 2 sessions with you. We'll archive all this. We'll put all the links that were
Perfect.
shared, the ideas that were shared in case people couldn't attend. And again, this information is freely available. Share it out, use it. Like Elme said, it's here to stay. So the more we get informed about it and start realizing its capability, the better we all are. And I want to thank you, Elme, again for making us smarter here today. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Anytime. Thank you so much. And any questions, you can also find my email in our website. And I'm happy to jump in a chat with any of you at any moment. And if I can help, I'll be happy to.
Amazing.
Okay. Have a
I
great
wish you
day.
all a good night, guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see
Bye.
you again soon. Bye-bye.